welcome to the stream. For those of you who are here and lurking, and those who may be watching this on replay, thanks for watching. Yeah. I'm gonna grab the brush tool and I'm gonna sketch out a character first. I'm gonna basically recreate that girl right there. I'm gonna totally recreate how I brought her to life. That's the plan. And sometimes I like to start off with a sketch. So just using animate brush tool, just grabbed a gray color and you know, this is how I initially drew all this, is just sketched it out. I don't even know if I sketched it out to begin with, to be honest. Sometimes I just draw with shapes, but you know, this is how I got a basic form down. Really simple. I kept it as simple as possible because, again, I only had half an hour, but technically they wanted just 25 minutes. I think maybe to leave some time at the end for questions or something like that. So this is going to use several animation techniques inside of Animate, where it's going to use classic tweens, easing, but also layer parenting. And I even show the asset warp tool. So there's a lot going on. So anyway, this is my really crude, rough sketch idea. All right. And that's on this layer here. The one and only layer, the default layer that opens up when you start a new document. One of the things that I start talking about early on is creating the document for social media. Up here you have all these categories: character animation, social. There's templates for Facebook and Twitter. But ideally, you can use these if you want. 1280 by 720 is fine. 720 by 1280 is fine. If you want more of a portrait orientation, you can even do square. You could do 1920 by 1080. That's also good, especially for YouTube, if you want high quality viewers to be able to click the high quality button or have it auto play in high quality. And in the video for Max in the presentation, you can actually just create your own and type it in. So I always go to character animation and this category here, and 1920 by 1080. I'll in frame rate of 30. I'm going to actually change that to 24. Sometimes I do 30 if I do more motion graphics oriented stuff. But with character animation, 24 is the standard. It's pretty good. I like it. I'm used to it. All right, so I don't need 4K. We could go HD, 1280 by 720, but I'm going to go full HD, 1920 by 1080 for this. And that's what I have here. In fact, if I click on the stage, my properties panel will update and just show me the document settings, 1920 by 1080. Actually, I didn't change the frame rate, so let's do that now. All right, but we haven't started animating yet. Anyway, so I have a sketch. There's a couple of ways I can kind of lightbox this. And one thing you'll learn in Animate is that there's several ways of doing the same thing. You can go here and create a blank keyframe and then turn on onion skin or the lightbox and draw in frame 2 and see a lighter lightboxy version of your drawing. Another way to do that is to basically right click over the layer, go to properties, and in the layer properties box, you can just hit the opacity button here. Just select that, hit OK, and that'll knock it back a little bit. Another way to do all of this, we could convert this drawing to a symbol. Let's actually call it sketch. It's not going to really matter. And then with it selected, go here, go to alpha, and knock it down using the slider. So, or go to tint and go to white and knock it down using this slider, the tint slider. So there's so many ways of doing this. Since I've already gone through the process of converting to a symbol and applying basically a color effect to the instance of the symbol, I'm just going to leave it like that. And so that's going to be just a reference. That's it. And sometimes I'll sketch outside of Animate. Sometimes it's just pencil on paper. And I'll take a photo of it with my phone and airdrop it to my computer and import that in as a bitmap. You can draw in Photoshop, do sketches, bring that in, import that as a bitmap, or even a layered PSD file, whatever. It doesn't matter. As long as you get, if you like working from sketches, that's a good way to do it. Another way to do it. I'm going to lock this layer and create a new layer on top. I'm currently on a pen display, an XP Pen Pro 22 pen display. 22R is the model number. And I've got some of the express keys on the side as shortcuts for things like inserting frames, creating keyframes, things like that. So I might do things that just appear out of the blue, but stop me. Hey, Annika, how are you? You made it. I figured out the server issue, got around that, and so I'm back. So the next step I'm going to do is draw using actual drawing tools. So now one thing that I kind of skipped over a little bit, I initially planned it for the Adobe Max session in the video. I had it all set up to go, was how I draw using object drawing mode and why. Let me open up the color panel tool. I'm going to drag it over here, and while I'm at it, swatches, and I'm going to just dock these two together. Perfect. And I'm going to just grab a color for now because I want to show what I didn't have time to show in the Adobe session is without object drawing mode. And if you're coming from Illustrator, you'll know what that means. If I draw a shape, make sure I get my, there we go. All right, so here's a shape, and it's all vector here as it would be, as you'd expect, right? And I can take the selection tool after I draw it, grab these handles or these corners and just pull them around. If I grab a side, I can bend it. And for me, this is one of the cool things about Animate. Let me turn off the drawing for a second. Let's move this over here. There's so many fun things you can do. You can actually click and drag outside and then inside the shape, and it'll select this range that you can see here, and I can hit delete and it's gone. Or if I don't want to hit delete, I can move it. So I can create cool things like this, and then grab this corner. I can have snap on, and you'll see when you get to another point, it'll snap to that point. So you can create all these cool shapes. It's almost like playing with clay in a way. And then, yeah, I can do stuff like this. So it's fun. I've created, I don't know, lots of different interesting shapes just playing with shapes and the selection tool. Just going in and hitting delete. And experimenting. Let's try. Yeah, you get the idea. Okay, so that is one example, right? So if I draw another shape, and then let's grab another color. And I'm going to hold down on this tool, grab the oval tool. Now, object drawing mode isn't on. The latency is super low now, so you can say hi to me in real time. Cool. Is there a, speaking of that, is there any kind of sync issue with my voice? I've been testing that a lot, trying to get it so that there's no delay, setting the delay in OBS. So, so that my voice actually matches with my lips. That can be an issue. And let me know if the music's too low or too loud. For me, it's fine, but Yeah, this is really cool. So watch this. Now, if we've got just raw, what I'm going to call raw vector shapes on the stage. Here's the free transform tool. It's Q on the keyboard. I use that a ton. That's usually the first key to wear out on my keyboard. But if I go and drag this shape over this one, and it's still selected, so nothing happens, right? But once I click off of it and I deselect it and then click it again and move it, it eats out that area of that shape underneath it or next to it or on top of it, whatever. It has an effect on it, right? And you can use that to your advantage if you know and anticipate that happening. You can actually play around with this in a cool way. It's really super easy. I find drawing in Animate way more intuitive and simpler than Illustrator, even though Illustrator is way more powerful because it has more tools. But sometimes just starting off with real basics like this, I get into Illustrator and I want to do stuff like this and I can't. So now the whole point of all this is to show you what object drawing mode does. Let me grab the oval tool again, and down here is a sub selection in the toolbar. I'm going to turn on object drawing mode or hit J on the keyboard and draw a shape. And let's go and grab the rectangle tool, grab a different color, and draw another shape. Again, object drawing mode is on, and you'll notice now when I select shape, it has a bounding box. So all these shapes are now protected from each other, and they're not going to do what they were doing before. So you can actually draw and build all on the same layer on top of each other, and without editing different and other shapes. So that's why object drawing mode is really good. So that said, I'm going to delete this, turn back on my sketch, and in a layer above the sketch, I'm going to start designing her. I'm just going to do it all in one layer with basic shapes and strokes, you'll see, and just keeping it super, super simple, and have object drawing mode on for now. Okay, so now what I want to do is just mix a color for her skin. I'm going to start with something around here, and let's see, maybe a little bit more pink, maybe a little lighter, something like that. And I'm going to go up to the upper top right corner, drop down, and add that as a swatch. It'll show up here. In fact, if we want, let's do this. Let's clear these colors and start kind of fresh and add the swatch. So there we go. All right. And now let's create her face. I'm going to grab the oval tool, object drawing mode is on. If I don't hold down shift, I can make an oval, right? If I hold down shift, it'll constrain the proportions, and boom, we have her face. In fact, you know what? While this is another thing I did not do in the Max video, I'm going to align this, and there's a reason why. I'm going to align it to the center. And in fact, while we're at it, let me just nudge original drawing over just to be perfect. All right, let me zoom in again. Now we have her face, right? So let's move on to the mouth, which I just want to be sort of a semicircle as we saw here. But what I'm going to do is a couple of ways of doing this. I'll show you both ways since we have time. We have all the time in the world. I'm going to hold down Alt and click and drag, and that's just going to create a new one, a new copy, a duplicate of this object. And I'm going to go to the stroke button here, the swatch. Oh, let's mix the color first. Let's go to something like this, and you can see it's adding a stroke. And in fact, in Properties panel, which is going to update to show me options I have, I'm going to adjust the stroke size. I can go as thick as I want, but something around here is going to be good. And maybe make it a little lighter. Yeah, that works. Add swatch. Now what I'm going to do is, since this object is still selected, I'm going to go to the fill swatch, click on it, and go to the no color icon here and just remove it. Now what I'm going to do is, if I double click on the artwork inside this object, I'm now inside the drawing object. We were before out on scene 1. Now we're inside this drawing object. We're sort of at these vectors here. You can see I can click and drag them. If I click outside, like we did earlier with the shapes, and select the top half, I can delete it or move it or do whatever. I'm gonna hit delete, and I'm gonna go back to scene 1. By the way, another way to go back to, so let's say, a parent level or back to scene 1, I can double click anywhere on sort of outside the artwork, and it brings me back to scene 1, which is basically my main timeline. Okay, it's kind of like jumping in and out of compositions if you're used to After Effects. This is going to be her mouth. Let's scale it down, hit Q on the keyboard, but it's this icon here, the second one down in the toolbar. Hold down Shift, and we have her mouth. It's as simple as that. I haven't, what we're going to eventually do is convert everything to symbols and start animating, but I'm not doing that yet. In fact, what I could do is just hit center here, and now I know it's centered with the head. I'm going to hold down Alt, and I think it's also either Option, I think it's Option on Mac to click and drag and create a duplicate. And let's create her eye. Sorry for the Windows chime. So I don't know how to avoid that when I hit certain keys on the keyboard. And then I'm going to hold down Shift and then Alt. It's going to duplicate it and constrain it along that axis. And I've got her other eye. Maybe move it down a little bit. All right, and all these are just different object drawings. All right, now what I'm going to do is let's mix a color for her hair. Let's start with this color, but let's go maybe a little more red. Add that swatch. I'm going to grab the oval tool. I could copy and paste using the face, but I want to turn off stroke. I don't want a stroke for this. And holding down Shift, this is going to be her hair, the front of her hair. Just drawing right over her face. Now, nothing's happening to anything below it because everything's an object drawing. Make it a little bigger. Double click it. Now from the bottom, working my way up, I'm just going to click and drag and kind of select this marquee, select the bottom half, right? And just hit delete. And then I can kind of play around with the position of this. I could leave it like this. I could play around with the way her hairstyle looks. What I did in the video is I wanted to create kind of like this S curve. And I could take A, which is the sub selection tool, and play around with, let's get this a little bigger. No, I don't want erase real pen mode. Yes, thank you. And do this. Let's move these out of the way. We don't need you anymore. And create that kind of curve like that. If sometimes what I'll do, and I think I did this in the Adobe Max video, I'll sometimes with the selection tool just select this half and do this. And same thing. Sometimes that's quicker. Good. That works for me. And there's her head. And actually, I'm going to create another ear for her. Have one ear exposed. I'm going to just Alt, click and drag the face. Hit Q, free transform, scale it down, and there's her ear. Make it as big or as small as you want. And you know what? We haven't saved anything yet, so let's do that. Okay. Now let's create her neck. And again, grab the skin tone we have here, grab the rectangle tool, just more of the same. Object drawing is on. I'm going to create a nice long neck. It's out of position right now, but that's okay. Let's zoom in on it. And I'm going to create a shadow for her neck. And I'm going to double click it, select the top third or so, and let's go to swatches and just grab that darker tone that we have. And then I'm going to go in here with the selection tool, right? Or hit V on your keyboard and just bend that down a little bit. Give her neck a little bit of form. Go to align. I'm just going to center it. Boom. And then hold down Shift, use the up arrow key, place it there. Now the next thing I want to do is I can go to, if I remember correctly, I want to go to modify, arrange, and send to back. Another way to do that is just holding down, I believe it's Control and a down arrow, and it'll just push. The more I push the down arrow, the further back it'll go. And maybe bring it up a little bit more. And so there's her neck. Now for the torso, the body. This is going to be fun because I'm not going to just grab the rectangle tool as I have been. I'm going to grab the rectangle primitive tool. And let's actually mix. Well, actually, no, we're going to start off with her skin tone, and then we're going to mix a couple of colors. So now with the primitive tool, right, if I go into properties, there's rectangle options that appears, right? Properties panel will update based on whatever tool you have selected. And what I'm going to do is type in a large number here, usually 100, 50 or 100. I want the most rounded corners possible. So I usually type in 100 like that. If you wanted to only say have rounded corners for 1 or 2 or 3 corners, you could go in here and go type in 0 and you'll create a shape like that. Okay. If you wanted to have a shape that had a radius of 20 on that corner, but 100 in that corner, you get the idea. Hit let's go 30 here and 40 here. You're going to have a shape like this with all different radiuses, which is kind of cool. For this though, if I just select this rectangle corner radius over here, it's going to apply whatever number I type in now to all 4 corners. Let's get rid of that. 100. And I'm just going to draw out a pill-like shape for her body. And hit align, let's center it, boom. And then move it up a bit. Something like that. Perfect. Okay. Just check and make sure everyone's there. Oh, I'm going to now edit this. Okay, actually, before I even do that, let's mix some colors. So let's go create a shirt color for her. A nice blue. Add the swatch, and I'm going to create a darker version of it for what will be her jeans. Her pants. All right, now let's grab that lighter blue for her shirt. I'm going to double click to enter inside of this primitive object. It's going to tell me to edit this object, animate it, must convert it to a drawing object. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, not a problem. So now I'm going to, again, like we did with the hair and in the neck, I'm going to click outside the shape and select the bottom 2/3 or 3/4 of it. Go to my swatches. I could even click in the fill color swatch here in the color panel and just select that color. Done. Do the same thing, but grab the bottom quarter of this and grab that darker color. Done. Now, while I'm here, I'm just going to use the eyedropper tool, grab this color here, the shirt color, and let's grab just the regular rectangle tool. Object drawing is still selected, and I'm going to create those shoulder straps for her. And just pulling down that corner, select it. I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt, create a duplicate. Then I'm going to go to Modify, Transform, and flip it horizontally. Okay, done with that. Now let's create her arm. And for this, I'm going to use the the line tool. I was going to say pencil tool, but we're going to use the line tool. And for the stroke color, we're going to grab the flesh tone, and object drawing mode is on. I'm just going to click and drag and create this arm. And then bend it, something like that. And now it's really thin, so just select it. Properties panel updates provides me with this nice stroke slider to alter the size of it. Something like that is pretty good. Let's bring it down a bit. And again, I want to arrange it to the back. Control arrow down. I'm going to click it, hold down Alt, duplicate it. Let's flip it vertically and then horizontally. And we have the other arm for now. Eventually, I'm going to just replace this. I'm just adding this in for the design aesthetic of it, but I'm going to animate this arm and then duplicate that and use it for her other arm anyway. So not going to really need it. Let's make them a little shorter. And while we're at it, let's grab the line tool again and the color, this dark blue color. And we're going to create a nice line down here. Oh, I did that wrong. Sorry. Wrong swatch. Holding down Shift will constrain it along the Y-axis. Something like that. We could even make this a little bit bigger if we wanted to make her legs thicker. We can make them as thick as we want. I'm going to go to something about that. That works for me. Okay. And then ultimately what I'm going to do is holding down Shift again and Alt, clicking and dragging, just duplicating it, select them both, do the same thing. And we've got, you know, what's going to eventually be legs. But again, I'm going to replace these when I start rigging her for animation. I just want to get the overall look down. Oop, I lost an earbud. In fact, I think I want to make her legs even longer. I'm going to delete these. Because she's going to be dancing, and if she has longer legs, it's going to just look better. That might even be too long. But it's okay. That works. We could leave it like this. But what I want to do is create the hair in the back, because eventually I want to show you how I animated that using the Asset Warp tool, which is a really cool tool, which I was going to show you anyway. Well, we can go back to Rectangle Primitive tool, grab the fill, the same color. Let's have no strokes for this. 100. Whoops. And then scale this up. Push it all the way back. Holding down Control, hitting the down arrow. They are long legs. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. Now our hair is going to be super long. But what I'm going to do is double click it. And it's a shape. So what I'm going to do is grab a portion of it and just start moving it up. Or I can delete a section of it in the middle, move the bottom up, just clicking it. There, that'll work. Okay, so now we have our character. They're all objects. She's ready to go. I'm happy with it. If we wanted to, we could go back into some parts of her and adjust the width of her arms or legs or whatever you wanted to do. But for now, for this example, we're doing pretty good.